The South African Human Rights Commission, SAHRC, just released a report about Hartbeesport Dam that reads like a perfectly crafted propaganda piece designed to make land expropriation without compensation sound reasonable, necessary, and morally justified. And if you can't see through this transparent attempt to build public support for state-sanctioned theft, you haven't been paying attention to just how these things work. But you see, these summer Sambit's been around, so he knows. Let me break it down to you exactly what's happening. What's happening there and why this report by the Human Rights Commission is less about human rights and more about creating a framework that is about taking people's property without paying for it and getting people to support that. Let's start with the setup here. The SAHRC investigated the Department of Water and Sanitation's leasing process for state-owned land along the Hartbeesport Dam shoreline. Why did I keep saying Hartbeesport? Anyway, the department has failed to redress racial and gender disparities in its leasing process, resulting in ongoing indirect and unfair discrimination against black and female applicants, allegedly. Allegedly, black applicants were consistently sidelined for more than a decade, while the white occupants retained and expanded access to prime land. Okay, so there's a dysfunctional government department that hasn't been processing applications properly. Got it. Very shocking. A South African government department being incompetent and failing to do its job is racism. This has never happened before in the history of our perfect public service, right? Psh. But notice how quickly the SAHRC jumps from the department is failing to process applications fairly to we need to consider expropriating the land. That's not a logical progression, that's an agenda. Why do you need to take the land to deal with the problem? Because here's where it gets very interesting. You see, the land is state-owned. Like the leases are from the Department of Water and Sanitation. It's not private property being rented out by white landowners. So this whole discrimination they are describing is entirely a function of government incompetence. The state is failing to properly administer its own leasing process because they're the ones who run the stuff there. The solution to government incompetence in administering state-owned land should be to fix the administration, process the backlogged applications, create clear criteria. I don't know, implement transparent procedures, do your job. Instead, the SAHRC is recommending expropriation as a tool to ensure equitable access to national resources. But expropriation of what exactly? If it's state land being leased, who are you expropriating from? The current leaseholders who have legal agreements with the government? It's your land. Whose land? Who are you taking this for? They are using documented dysfunction in government lease administration to build a case for a much broader power, the power to expropriate property to achieve equitable access. Today, it's lease agreements at Hartbeesport. Tomorrow, it's farms. Next week, it's coastal property. Next month, it's suburban homes in historically white areas. All nonsense. All nonsense. This is propaganda framing at its best. Look at how carefully this report is constructed. I mean, they start with racial tensions, obvious. Businesses are being set on fire. Hey, there's allegations of harassment of the black people and racist attacks. Hey, there's claims of Afrikaans-speaking individuals trying to displace black residents. We're not going to name names. They paint a picture of this ongoing racial conflict and discrimination. And then they document legitimate government failures. Yes, black applicants have been waiting years while white applicants got processed. That's real, sure, but it's because of you. But then comes the leap. Because there's discrimination in lease administration, allegedly, you need to take land. Is that a solution to the problem you identified, if what you say is true? Or is that using the problem you identified as justification for a completely different agenda, my friend? If the issue is discriminatory lease administration, the solution is non-discriminatory lease administration. fire the incompetent bureaucrats, implement objective criteria, process applications in order, create oversight to ensure fairness. These are boring administrative solutions that should actually fix the problem. But boring administrative solutions don't advance the expropriation agenda, right? They don't create the precedent for state taking property like you guys want, right? They don't build the narrative framework that land expropriation is necessary to address the historical discrimination we've all been facing. So what's the real goal here? This report isn't really about fixing lease administration at Hartbeesport Dam, is it? It's about nothing but establishing a template, a blueprint for how to justify expropriation without compensation anywhere in South Africa. Because now what they've done is they've created a template when if they actually succeed with this, every other case they'll be like, oh, they probably took the land because there was also racism there. That's step one. Step two, document legitimate grievances and government failures. Step three, you must frame it as ongoing discrimination requiring urgent intervention. Oh no. And then step four, recommend expropriation as one of the several legal mechanisms to address the disparity. And then when people object, accuse them of defending racism and discrimination. Like me, I'm objecting. They're going to say Sambit is a racist. You see how that works? You can apply that template to literally any area of South Africa. They can even apply to your house. You think you're safe, you. They can say there's racial disparity in your house. You're being racist to your kids. They take your land and you can't do anything about it. So don't think I'm being extra by justifying why this is wrong. This is the dysfunctional government problem. Because this is the part that's absolutely maddening. The same government that failed to properly administer these applications of lease applications for over a decade is now being handed the solution of expropriation powers. The same bureaucrats who couldn't process paperwork fairly are now going to be trusted with the power to seize property. The Madibeng local municipality, which has jurisdiction over Hartbeesport, admitted to a collapsed planning system, failure to enforce bylaws, and delays in processing business licenses. So the municipality is being described as dysfunctional. And the solution to dysfunction is, well, giving dysfunctional government more power over property. That's insane. That is mind-boggling. If your mechanic can't change your oil properly, you don't hand him the keys to rebuild your engine. You find a better mechanic. So they've taken the story that is completely unrelated to land expropriation and said, you see, this is why we should take land. And here's the most telling detail. Even Meli Mdluli, who filed the original complaint, has rejected this SAHRC report because he accused the commission of being dishonest, accused them of deflection, and failure to fully address the complaint. They submitted over 400 pages of evidence, and it feels like they didn't even properly consider it. So when even people who complained about discrimination are rejecting your report as inadequate, you are lying. That should tell you something. You are a liar. This report wasn't written to satisfy the complainants or fix the problem. It was written to establish a justification for land expropriation without compensation. EWC. That's the precedent they're setting. Make no mistake about what's happening here. The SAHRC is testing the waters. They're seeing if they can use documented government failures and legitimate grievances to justify expropriation without significant public backlash. If this precedent holds at Hartbeesport, why do I keep saying Hartbeesport? Then this is a failure of government once again. Because if they succeed with this, they'll apply it everywhere. Farm ownership disparities, expropriation. Coastal property, expropriation. You disciplined your kids in your house, expropriation. Any racial disparity in property ownership becomes grounds for the state to take without paying any rand for it. Just imagine. The SAHRC's Hartbeesport report is propaganda, dressed up as a human rights investigation. It takes real problems, government incompetence, and discriminatory administration, and uses them to justify a solution that has absolutely nothing to do with fixing these problems and has everything to do with expanding state power to seize property. They want you to see racial discrimination and immediately accept the fact that expropriation is a reasonable response. They want you to feel like opposing expropriation means defending racism, right? They want you to make property rights seem like it's less important than transformation and equitable access. Don't fall for it, please. Please don't fall for that. You're better than that. The solution to dysfunctional government is better government, not more power for dysfunctional government. The solution to discriminatory administration is fair administration, not property seizure. And anyone telling you otherwise is selling something. And what they're selling is your property rights. Nice try, South African Human Rights Commission, but we can see exactly what you're doing here. Like and subscribe.